I got to tell you, I am bowled over by this man. We had an amazing off-air conversation. His book is called The Scarred Oak. William Walraven joins us, and his experiences of what happened to him as a child near the German border town in Holland, where he grew up, will just raise the hair on the back of your neck. And then what he accomplished when he came to the United States. So, William, thanks so much for coming on to talk about your book.
You're welcome. I'm glad I'm talking to you.
Tell us about what it was like as a child growing up during the war, during German occupation, and how old were you and what did you see?
Well, it was a very small and peaceful village, and they came unexpectedly over the border on the 10th July 1940. And right away, naturally, they were in control of everything. And within a year, they had all the razzias where they pushed all the people out of the houses into an open space. And most of the names they had already, but they were Jewish, they pushed them into big trucks. And, I mean, not friendly. They really pushed and hit them into trucks, and they were gone. And so I'm talking about the war now. And when I was 10 years old, I was across the road for me, there was this small farm, and I was always working there, milking the cows. And one night, it was in November, I think it was 92 or 93, people had to have their windows closed with black paper because the Germans didn't want to let the Americans flying overhead to see that there was a city, so everything was dark, so all people supposed to go off the street, except like my dad, he was in the coal mines. He had a yellow band around because he had to go at night shift, but all the people had to be inside. And I was a little late, and I walked across. It was only a small, maybe 10 feet, not much, just a small village street. At one time, I remember that I saw this flash, and at the same time, somebody hit me with a sledgehammer against my leg, and it was awfully painful, but then it was numb at nearly the same time. And when I fell with my hand, I felt the blood coming out of my leg. So I started screaming my heart off, and my dad came running out, and he pulled me inside the house, but they shot twice at him, and they missed him. So.
Ooh, you were shot by the Germans because you broke their rule of not getting off that street by 8 p.m. where you were just going a few feet, not realizing that would happen, showing you the severity of it. And you have many interesting stories about what you saw and what that was like. And one of the stories I think is worth telling, and there's so many people listening in the U.S., is when you and your friend found an American soldier because you were just playing.
Oh, yeah.
What happened there?
Well, we were both kind of enthusiasts about all kinds of stuff, like young minds to work. And on Wednesday, we had only half-day school, and the teacher in the morning, the last hour, would sit in front of the class and read us out of a book. And this time he was reading us about Edmundson, who discovered the South Pole. And we were sitting there, I bet you, with our mouths open. It was really something. And I had a big German shepherd. And so my dad had already a year ago made me a nice big sled out of electrical pipes. And with some bands and bells, we put the dog in front of the sled. And we were going to discover the South Pole. and we got heavy dressed. The dog naturally in the beginning didn't want to listen because he was jumping around, but we finally got him to listen. When we came in the field, we know the fields, we played there, but a little bit farther up, about a mile, there was this little hill, and we considered that to be the South Pole. So when we were up there, it was windy, it was cold, it was really mean winter day. But that naturally in our mind was the way it was on the South Pole. So we went there, and a little bit, we went about halfway, and then Nico, my friend, said, "What is that laying there?" And we saw something like what's not supposed to be laying there, and we walked over there, and it was an American pilot laying under his parachute. And he was badly injured. Actually, his top leg, the bone was taken out, but he was unconscious. And I guess the parachute has saved him from freezing. And so what are we going to do? Call the Germans or what? But anyway, we decided that this man came from so far away, we are not going to give him to the Germans. Naturally, it was kind of bravery, but also dumb, because if we were cut, then the whole family would have been in trouble. But we didn't think that far. So I left Nick and the dog there, and I went back myself with a sled to the neighbor, but he wasn't there. My friend, his son, he wasn't there. And so I had this old feed box, was a wooden open box, and with some rope tied it to the sled and pulled it in the field. And that was easier said than done, because we couldn't lift them in. So we pulled the sled over and rolled them in, and naturally he was moaning, but he didn't come through. He was still moaning. And so we finally got that whole thing up, and Nick was pushing and I was pulling. And when we came closer to the street in our village, we came to the shocking conclusion that the whole street had filled up with SS trucks and was full with SS people. So now we thought, oh boy, this was it. We did pull by them. We didn't give up. We pulled by them. We were going to bring him to the convent, because in the convent was the only nun, her name was Teresa, who had a red cross. We call it green cross in that time. And he was the only one who could help him. So we were pulling it up there, but we came to the conclusion that the road up to the convent was too steep. So the soldiers were laughing at us. So I forgot to tell you, we had it filled up with beads, out of an old bead cellar, what the farmers put in the field during the winter time. And so we had to fill it. So it was very heavy. We couldn't get them up, so what to do? So I finally, like I said, I was young, went to this SS officer, and I naturally live on the German border, so I could speak fluently German. So I asked the German officer to give us a couple of soldiers, because we were going to bring beads to the nuns.
Wow.
So, and they did. He smiled and did, and they pushed it to the back of the convent, and I still remember this little nun with rosy cheeks opened the door and started laughing and said, "These beads are not for eating, these are for animals." And I finally was out of breath, and I said, "They're not beads, there's a pilot underneath." And so she really got a heart attack, I think, because she was Snow White in her face.
And you rescued him, which it's a lovely story. And I don't want to give everything away in the book. You talk about your life coming to America, and there's so many wonderful things people can discover. We have just a couple of minutes left. What is the Scarred Oak in a few words? And what do you hope people take away, William, from reading this book?
Oh, well, the Scarred Oak, make it as short as I can. When I was in my late teens, I had a girlfriend for a couple of years. And my closest friend I ever had, he was only a half year younger than I was, and he lived right beside us. His name was Nico, and we did everything together. And we even went to the coal mines together as electricians. And one day it caved in on me at quite a depth in the coal mine. And before they got me out, it was 4 days. I was enclosed without lights and water up to my neck. And they finally did I was unconscious. I'd hang myself by my belt.
Wow.
And so they got me out, but a half year later, Nick, we had the same shift because they gave us the same area. Nick got also involved in a cave-in right around the corner from me. We were just together 5 minutes before, and when I came there, that cave-in also, and I saw his foot sticking out. He was dead in a second. And so, again, about a half year later, my girlfriend, she was a beautiful girl, but she was very jealous. I was a soccer player. Naturally, if we won, I was the hero, and if we lost, and I was the bum. Lucky that we won, so we were sitting on the bar on a Saturday evening, and everybody was buying me drinks. And there were a couple of girls kind of eyeing at me, and Elisa got upset and said, "Let's go home, I have a headache." And so I first didn't believe it, but then I was kind of angry. I thought she was jealous, so I brought her home. And about a couple of hours later, and her brother, we didn't live together, we were only 5-10 minutes by bicycle. He came chasing on, and he told us that they brought her to the hospital. So when I went to the hospital, the father and mother were there already, but the doctor didn't let me in because I was not a close family lit. But then the father and mother came out crying. She had died.
Oh.
She had died from a brain hemorrhage. So all these three things happened to me in time of about a year, and I was completely heartbroken. So we lived, like I said, right on the German border. So one Saturday afternoon, I walk into the woods, and there is this fallen tree, and I sit down there, and I'm bawling my head off. I still remember. And somehow, through the pine trees, I see this open spot. And in that spot was this huge oak tree. I must have seen it all my life, but this was different. It was as if the bottom branches, huge branches, opened up and became arms. And so I slowly walked to it, and I put my arms around it. Not around it, I was too big halfway. I was still bawling, but when I look up, I saw all over scars of branches broken off through the ages. And that changed my life completely till now. I only saw that I was that oak tree, and whatever happened to me were only branches breaking off.
So that's the scarred oak. That's the lesson in that. And again, we don't want to give it all away. We're out of time because people will be able to find that deeper meaning. But the scarred oak, William Walraven, thanks so much for coming on. Get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Thank you very much.